Farmers today are facing rising costs, volatile markets, and extreme weather. The A Better Way to Farm podcast digs into strategies to help you take control of farm inputs and maximize profit so your farm can thrive for generations. Remember to take advantage of our free resources at abetterwaytofarm.com. Now, from America's Heartland, here's your host.
Have you ever wondered how to decide how much more nitrogen to put on side dress? We're going to talk about that very briefly today. Denny, talk to us. I know you've got a lot of experience. At what stage do you encourage the testing of nitrogen, and tell us how you'd go about that when we're trying to figure out the side dress amount?
Based on just a mountain of research data that you can find out there on the internet, the source of all knowledge and truth, right? But this is indeed a topic that does have a lot of research dating back really to the days of Dr. Alfred Blackmer, who I talk about quite a bit. I was able to do a lot of seminars with him. We used to call them nitrogen symposiums, and they were one day in length on nothing but nitrogen. So Fred Blackmer in his career developed some testing techniques, and we're going to briefly talk about one of them today called PSNT, aka or also known as the Pre-Sidedress Nitrogen Test. And initially we just called it the Pre-Sidedress Nitrate Test. Nitrate, of course, being one of the forms of N that's plant usable, but with the use of nitrification inhibitors like Guardian and other techniques like in-season, Y-drop, better timing, and some of those things, we now consider the other plant available form of N, the ammonium form, also. And Midwest Laboratories has fairly recently put together just an awesome chart that I think you probably have posted out on your Ag Answers and maybe a few other places. So when corn, this is specifically to corn, is between V4 and V6. And obviously in many areas of the country right now, Rod, people are past that. So the test probably doesn't have the same kind of validity that it does early. It truly was designed as a very early test that could be used to see how much spring nitrogen loss had occurred and the need for additional nitrogen, if any, and then a very precise amount to answer that. I just looked at a blog from the University of Minnesota the other day, and they're saying the magic number is 20 parts per million of nitrate in the top 12 inches of the profile. So basically, we're measuring the nitrogen that is available to corn roots at the V4, V6, and where they have most of their roots in that region, 0 to 10, 0 to 12. As far as procedure, the cores need to be 12 inches deep. Just remember that, a foot deep. This is not your typical 0 to 6 soil test for P and K and micros. This is a little deeper. A good soil probe will handle that. I like to move, let's say we're in 30-inch row corn, and maybe you're in twins or something else, but let's just use that as an example. I like to take all of the cores 12 inches deep in increments of 4 inches away from the row. So move over with core 1, take it 4 inches, then go over 8 inches, 12, 16, 20, 24. You get the idea. That and stay out of the row. We've stayed out of the row in probing just because we don't want any of the results to be skewed by nitrogen coming from starter or nitrogen that was applied through wings or through splitters and other in-row applications. We're looking for the bulk of the nitrogen in the program here. This is also very valuable where there's been heavy amounts of manure applied to see what's remaining, or if there have been heavy rains, as we've had in certain parts of the country. Other areas very dry, but it's valid there too. So it's pretty simple. We just get an adequate number of cores, 12 inches deep, submit them Midwest Labs. They will measure for nitrate and ammonium. You need to request both forms. I don't know the exact cost, but it's inexpensive. This is not a costly thing at all. Then we'll go to a chart that they have prepared. And even based on your yield goal, which should be a realistic yield goal. I mean, a lot of people say, I want 300 bushel corn. And I say, what's the best you've ever done? 200? Well, maybe let's go to 220 first, okay? By the inch, it's a cinch. By the yard, it's kind of hard. So we want to be realistic on our yield goal. But even at the highest levels of yield, this thing is very accurate at predicting how much additional N, if any, is needed based on what's there at that V4, V6 stage with a high degree of reliability. University of Minnesota in their recent blog said that the numbers they're working with are accurate at 90% of 97% of maximum yield. So that there's a wealth of data. This is not something that's in the let's see if it works stage.
Yeah.
And we just want our growers to be aware of this as we fine tune these nitrogen management programs.
Absolutely. You hit on something, D, I want to go back to, because a lot, like I know Minnesota was only talking nitrate in their blog, as I understand it. Say, we're going to run a nitrate test. And that kind of makes my skin crawl, to be quite honest. The real first hard lesson we learned with this was with our friend Chris down in Oklahoma. Share that story, what happened, why it's important to not only get a nitrate test, but to get that ammonium N test also, and talk about how that plays into the decisions we're making.
Well, the individual you're referring to, we've often affectionately said he is the perennial Oklahoma State corn yield champion. Raises wheat, soybeans, does an outstanding job in the cattle business as well. Just a good friend. This morning before we began, went back and booted up the computer and found the study he had done in 2015. This is 10 years old already. And he had applied some nitrogen with herbicide behind the planter press wheel at 35 pounds of actual N, and then came back with an early side dress of 115 pounds of actual N. He's using UAN and ammonium thiosulfate. So he had a 30,003 with just under 2 quarts of Guardian nitrogen additive in there on that side dress. Then they got 15 inches of rain in May, which is just a little more than you'd like to see. He was very concerned that the nitrogen had been lost. And so he went out there 0 to 6 and 6 to 18, which is a little bit of a modification on the procedure. But still, he had 2 different depths. And based on the nitrate only that was found, you would have put on a significant amount of additional nitrogen there. However, he also requested the lab. We talked about this, and I said, see what the amount of ammonium in that's left, because that's what your Guardian product is doing, is keeping the nitrogen in the ammonium form longer. And in a fluid like 30,003, 75% of your nitrogen when you apply it is ammoniacal or ammonium. Well, he had over 60 parts per million in the top 18 inches left of the ammonium form. So putting the two together, there was no need to put on any additional nitrogen at all. He did not put on any more and had a tremendous yield result.
Yeah, and I think that's what this is all about, is determining how much do I need. We sell nitrogen typically in the industry out of fear of loss. Oh, you don't want to be short. Everybody will talk. But the reality is right now what we got to do is be talking to the banker, and the banker's talking about cost per bushel, and only applying nitrogen as needed is the key. And guys, I want to tell you, this chart that we have from Midwest Labs, would you agree, Danny? This is the best thing I've seen in a long time for managing nitrogen.
Well, they just did an outstanding job of categorizing yields and known levels of nitrogen in both plant available forms, nitrate and ammonium. And we want people to learn that. You're working with 2 plant available forms of N here, nitrate and ammonium. Both of them are effective. Ammonium is not easily lost. Nitrate is use it or lose it. And so we got count for both of those. And then based on just, a mountain of research data it was certainly not driven by the industry. As the industry wants to sell product. This came out of researchers who were kind of, I'm not saying they were anti-industry, but they told their facts regardless.
Well, yeah,
they were under no pressure to sell anything.
Yeah, I think that, we're seeing a lot of work come out from, like, University of Illinois has one particular PhD who we love very much, doing work on potassium. We've got people doing work on nitrogen, and we're excited about that. So this chart, guys, is real easy. You can get it. We can send it to you if you want. All you do is you take your NO3 and your NH4, ammonium and nitrate, add them together in parts per million. And then once you get that parts per million, you just follow the chart across to the yield goal that you have. Denny said realistic. And it tells you exactly how much, if any, nitrogen you need to put on. So, guys, I hope this was valuable to you. Denny, any parting shot here as we get ready to wrap this up?
No, I mean, this is a tool that is available. It's based on lots of research. and it's based on ROI, return on investment. It's good for the environment. So it has that going for it as well. I mean, there isn't, but you do need to follow the procedure. I mean, remember, these cores have to be 12 inches deep and move off the row so that you're sampling across the soil profile. And we can get a sheet to anyone that wants to do this. If you don't want to do it yourself, find a crop tech locally that's well-versed in this, and get these numbers, and then we can help you.
Absolutely. So guys, thanks for tuning in today. We sincerely appreciate it. And as always, we look forward to talking to you at any point in time that we can. We hope you're having a better day.